Welcome back to the Master Series. Throughout this worldwide health and financial crisis, Entertainment Partners has been producing a master series of live webinars focusing on COVID-19 impacts to the entertainment industry and its workers through in-depth discussions with EP's legal, tax, payroll, and production experts. And today we have outside experts. Now, the purpose of this master series is to give you the information you need right now to make informed decisions. All of these master series have been archived and are available at theproductioncommunity.com. There are two quick housekeeping items as we get started. First, in addition to hearing from our experts, you're welcome to ask them questions yourself. Use the Q&A section of this Zoom call at the bottom of the Zoom window, and if we have time, we will do our best to answer them. Also, please take 30 seconds to answer a very short survey at the end of this live webinar. Today, we are talking to finance masters, and we're excited to introduce an all-star blue ribbon panel, starting with Yolanda Cochran, the Senior Vice President of Production at Nickelodeon. Yolanda previously served as VP of Production at Walt Disney Television's Freeform Studio, and prior to that, she was EVP of Physical Production at Alcon Entertainment. Her producing credits include The Book of Eli, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2, Point Break, and The Blind Side. Nour Dardari is a freelance controller and associate producer. His recent projects include Star Wars Episodes 8 and 9. Prior to that, Nour was the controller on the Hobbit series. He was also financial controller on Avatar. He is currently working on The Lord of the Rings at Amazon. Chip Holloway leads production finance at Netflix's original film team, as well as production finance for all Asia and India. Chip built out the feature team in the US, starting from a team of 1. To solve for hiring challenges, he developed an in-house training program called JET, which we're excited to hear about. Prior to Netflix, Chip was a freelance production accountant for both film and TV. Also joining us, Bryan Yaconelli, who has worked as a production executive and freelance production supervisor. His latest project as an associate producer is the film Ghostbusters Afterlife at Sony. His other recent projects include The Prom and Dolomite Is My Name. Bryan's career has spanned working on the set in the camera department to production finance at MGM, production executive roles at Lionsgate and Legendary, to head of production at Overture Films. Our host is Steve Wegner. Many of you know Steve. He's Vice President of Sales at EP and is a former production accountant with over 30 years of experience in film and television accounting. Steve, we're really excited to get going. Take it away.
Yeah, well, thanks, James. You're right. I like the word blue ribbon panel. This is the top notch. So welcome, panelists. I appreciate your time today. I know this is an early morning, but I think everybody who's watching is going to really appreciate the time and effort that you guys put into being part of this. So I thank you guys for being part of it today. Yolanda, I got an opportunity to meet you almost 20 years ago, and I remember when I first met you, you were
Don't date me, Steve. Don't date me.
Like a couple weeks ago, but I
Yeah.
remember you were actually working on features, and now why the move from features, which you were very successful at, to television? I'm just curious, why the move?
Sure. Well, so I started my career and spent the bulk of it, over 20 years, I'll date myself, in features and love features, and did for a very long time. And then what I saw was the industry start to change in about 2013, 2014, around the time that Netflix really started making a splash with House of Cards, and the television landscape started to change. A lot of the growth in the business that I was seeing, both from the amount, the type of content and the volume of content, as well as production companies, was starting to lean towards episodic television. And I actually was really interested to broaden my experience and also what I was actually, the content that I was working in. So I started seeking out opportunities to work in episodic television. And it took me a little bit to make that transition, but eventually I did, and it's been great ever since.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And Nour, I've got to know you for many years, but I oftentimes, you work on some of the largest budgeted movies out there. obviously I see in the background all of the fancy posters there. I'd love to take a couple of those home. But I see Star Wars up there. But how, when you first get on these projects, I'm sure each one's its own challenge. I'm just curious if you could share with us how you approach it, and like one of the big problems that you may have been dealt, and how did you actually unravel it or solve the problem that was presented to you? If you can give us an example.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me on this webinar series. I'm really thrilled to be here with my peers and panelists. So yes, I have worked on many large budget films, and as you know, all these films come with their own challenges. One actually challenge that stands out in my mind is when I was doing the Hobbit movies. When we started doing The Hobbit, we budgeted the films as 2 films. It was a long shoot schedule, 2 large scripts, and we shot the film for over 200 shoot days. We were traveling all over the country. We were on stages, we were on locations. So it's a big challenge just to keep track of that, big size, large size budget film. So we wrapped principal photography, and then I went back to Los Angeles for some meetings in the studio. 1 week later, I come back to New Zealand, and one of the producers called me and tells me the same day, actually, I landed in New Zealand, said to me, I know, said to me, Nour, are you ready for this? I said, what? He goes, well, we're making a 3rd film, and we would like you to budget that film. At the end of the day, we need to amalgamate all these costs into one cost report and figure out the budget. Normally on any movie, once we lock the budget is done.
It's done usually.
Yeah. So now I had to figure out what it entails into the 3rd film, and how do I budget that, and how do I put it back into my main budget and create a massive. And not only that, I mean, you're talking about a budget to about 700-800 pages. I mean, we're not talking about a few hundred, 40, 50, 100 pages. Yeah. So it was a big challenge, to be quite honest. I mean, I did it. We were able to get the new number, and studio blessed it, and we moved on. But definitely it was a big challenge just to come back. These things don't happen very often, but it's one that totally stands out in my mind.
Well, that's a great one. And Chip, you're working for a company that's really part of our pop culture. I have to admit, I don't think there's a news article that doesn't mention Netflix at some point in there, and either as a model or a company that's doing something that's completely different on the cutting edge. I know that you have the privilege of running the original films and growing the business, and actually, I think for a lot of us who are trying to follow Netflix and figure out some of the creative things you come up with, tell us a little bit about a program. I got to hear about it, the JET program. I'm sure some people would be on this call would love to hear a little bit about if you're able to reveal a little bit about some of the inner workings at Netflix. That'd be great.
Sure. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with my esteemed colleagues in the industry here this morning. I had the pleasure of working with Yolanda early on in the original film initiative at Netflix. Bryan's worked on several of our films. We keep trying to get Nour, but we haven't had a project with 14 zeros attached to it yet, and that's the size that Nour does. A challenge that we all face in the finance side of the business right now is a lack of talent in the freelance world and lack of talent on the studio side. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to find folks. We try to think of, I like to think of it as in a football analogy, where I've got a lot of great quarterbacks right now, both in the studio and in the field, but down the road, I'm going to need another great quarterback. And so we're constantly trying to foster those relationships. On the studio side, knowing that there's a lack of a pipeline into the business, and then a lack of a pipeline to grow those executives into top studio executives. And so a few years ago, as our business was expanding pretty quickly, we knew that there was going to come a time where we would not have enough executives to fill our pipeline. And so we decided to build out an internal program called JET, which stood for Junior Executive Training. And the idea was to groom future executives by giving them a mix of studio and field-based experience.
That's
And
great.
so they'd start on either on the feature team or the series team or the documentary team, and they'd spend 6 months in the studio and then go out on one of those projects in the field. And after that field rotation, they'd come back to the studio and rotate to a different team. And over the course of 3 years, we hope to replicate the amount of experience they might get in the freelance world in many more years.
Wow. I with the JET program, is that something in where, I don't know, how would one even know about the JET program? Is there any way of talking a little bit about how you ended up?
Sure.
How does someone find the JET program? And
So it's on our it's on Netflix's job site for one. And so if you're searching for finance jobs on the Netflix site, you would find it. We also speak at my counterpart at Netflix, Lawrence Franks, and I spend a lot of time talking to universities, to business students and the film students, and spread the word of this program and try to get a new diverse funnel of candidates into the film business.
That's great. And Bryan, I got the pleasure to meet you early as you moved into finance, but you started, I believe, in camera. How did you go from camera to production?
It's a good question, Steve. As my fellow panelists can admit, there's no telling when the accounting bug is going to strike and you're going to launch into a career into production finance. For me, it was actually a car accident, made it kind of difficult for me to lift heavy things like camera boxes for a living. So I transitioned into the studio world at MGM and got into their temp program in production accounting, and got lucky and ended up working with John Hertzstein in what was called the feature estimating department back then.
Yeah, that's great. Well, terrific. And I know that as you know, unfortunately, we're right now in this post-COVID, we're talking about all the time. You see news articles about starting production back up. I'm curious, when you guys are now doing the production side, Yolanda, you obviously oversee all the production.
Yep.
And people like Nour actually have to budget for it. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit as a group, a little bit about things you're going to have to deal differently and how this will possibly impact the financial budgets of projects that you're going to look to start up.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, something that it's a big conversation. Lots of people are talking about it and sharing information. And it's a big puzzle and a challenge to kind of problem solve how we approach production, particularly because production, for the most part, other than, some technological advances, the approach to production has been the same for decades. And there's a lot of the processes and protocols that we all have done the same way for all of that time, and getting people to think in a different way can be a challenge. Unfortunately, we now have one that is unavoidable, and we're going to have to problem solve. And so we're looking at a lot of different things that we can do in the way that we approach our daily shoot to be mindful and safe about our productions. And that means thinking about different ways to approach things. For instance, I've been privy to a particular caterer who's been in the business for many decades, who is also thinking about this. And, he came up with some ideas of some different ways to think about, approaching lunch, because typically at lunchtime you have about 100 people lined up at the caterer, and getting buffet style meals, and that's not going to work in a COVID scenario. So, an idea from him was, to have your crew make an order the night before of what they'd like to have for lunch the next day. And those orders would then be prepared and ready for them and boxed, and have a boxed meal that they could then pick up, or that could be delivered to a department, as opposed to having everybody stand in line together.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
It's
all those different kinds of things. I mean, the list is endless about all the different things you need to do to, have a safe production in this environment.
And I am sure that will add some cost to any budget going forward in allowing extra safety crew, extra cleaning for hygiene and all. So that will be, obviously, it's still now work in progress and trying to figure out what that entails and what sort of, yeah. So, but we can definitely see that there will be a special maybe line item for COVID, or I don't know what we call it, but definitely we have to have some allowance to make sure that everyone is safe and we have enough, money for the personnel to.
And even like structuring, your call times for people so that, everybody's not, I mean, you need people when you need them, but you also have to think about, can we have call times maybe for, our set dressers or those crew members that is going to be staggered and earlier, and have them have a set prepared before call time of, the people that you need directly on set to shoot.
That's good. Bryan, I know that you're going to be working on probably another feature here coming up. Is that something you're budgeting for right now, thinking about, or how are you
certainly
approaching
something I'm thinking about.
some of the cost aspects?
Budgeting is an interesting question. I think to Nour and Yolanda's point, there could be a simple line item for additional crew and PPE and hand washing stations and sanitizer. But what the knock-on effect will be to controlling a set as far as the time per. Sorry, did you guys go away? I got a phone call in the middle of my conversation.
We still see you.
Good. As I was attempting to say, how things will change as far as what department will be in charge of a set at a particular time. How do you let 5 or 6 or up to 10 people, whatever the number is, once the guidelines come in, control it, as you said, for set deck, for lighting, for grip, for camera. When do you bring in the actors? How do you minimize that and still get all the work that needs to be done? Special effects, stunts, like everyone needs their time. It's an interesting process making a film. It's a global industry, and we're pretty good at it after 100-something years. But how do we?
And then it's possibility of it lengthening the day to be able to to approach the shooting day safely and not have as many people gathered in the way that we normally do. Those are the kinds of things that are gonna add cost and or need.
Right. If the same amount of work needs to be done with the same amount of people, but they can't work at the same time, then
correct. Yeah.
Right. It's an uncharted territories for all of us now. So we're trying to figure out how we manage that and make sure that we bind to the guidelines and what kind of personnel you need. So it's really is a new experience for everybody, and it's a challenge for all the studios all around the world, really, not only here.
Yes.
Yeah. Every day you think you can read a different article and new ideas that people are trying to put forth, and float those ideas out to see if it'll actually have some weight behind it.
That's right.
And another thing that everyone's talking about is, and we've been talking about this for a while, EP's been trying to solve for it through some of our technologies that we're coming out with, and some which are out and some that we're developing. But everybody's talking about going digital, right? Reducing the amount of paper that's out there on set because of contamination, and just post-COVID has really heightened the awareness of trying to be as digital as possible. I know that Netflix has been on that edge for a while of trying to do things different and also reduce paper on set. I'm just wondering if you guys can talk as a group here a little bit about what does go digital to you, and then how will you adopt that as we start production again here later the fall. If you could just share, what does that mean to you when you say go digital and reduction of paper?
Sure. So for those that haven't worked in a production accounting office on set, the average start packet is around 70 pages long, and when you multiply that times the amount of people on the average set, it comes to we're counting it up on one of our productions, and it averages 10 Midwestern 45-foot pine trees.
Wow.
So it's a lot. And so we're trying to think.
And those start packs keep getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
They only get bigger. Exactly.
And there's going to be a whole COVID waiver, I'm sure, next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is to think across the full spectrum of the financial process of the show, from script till final cost report, and think about each step along the way and how can we digitize and make things better. Things such as digital time cards, to mobile time capture, to scanning everything, not having anything printed out, or file cabinets. Literally every step along the way, there's room for digital improvement.
Yes.
And a lot of those products exist. Steve, you mentioned EP's got a lot of good ones. We just need to adopt them as an industry.
Yeah, when I was at Freeform, actually, we had a show that we did, Smart Start, so where we did all of our start packs and all of the entry. We had, I believe we set up either a local desktop or some iPads or something, so that each crew member could come into the office and do their digital start pack. Then it would travel through and be approved. All of the things that you need to do with the start packet was handled digitally, and I'm a big proponent of that. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And we're doing that at Netflix right now as well. We use a product called ESN, and it really cuts down in the amount of the amount of paper that ends up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
Nour, I know that. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bryan.
No, I was going to say I've used it a couple of times, both on Dolomite, and recently I was helping on the prom. And digital onboarding is really efficient way to help in the overall cutting down of paper in our lives. So
yeah, and
it's
I
just
think
super
it'll help
efficient.
with the whole. I agree with you. It's
the way of the future, really.
I think it's a way of the now, Nour. Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, like if
it's true.
What's going to happen now with going back to COVID for a moment. I mean, I think the more we can work offline or online, rather, it will help the whole.
Right.
And we proved we can do it, right?
Exactly. Well said.
Yes.
We're zooming right now as we
Exactly.
speak. You know? Who said they couldn't teach an old dog? Here, look at me.
All right.
No, that's great. And I'm just on the next part. I mean, know that and Chip, you've been a success doing the JET program, and EP offers a number of training classes too. We have a class to get people started that we're offering out during this period. But in general, people want to move into this entertainment industry. I know that Yolanda, you started a little bit differently. You were originally in accounting. I think you actually may have been a CPA or you were studied that.
Yeah.
And then you moved over. And I think people would like to know a little bit more about how would someone go about learning this position. I mean, we offer some classes I mentioned. I mean, then there's the terrific job that Netflix has figured out through the JET program. How does someone else though move in and maybe share a little bit about what you would suggest to those individuals who are, I'm going to say, near your ability and your success? What would you say to someone? What would you suggest to get them to go forward into that process of moving into either production or production finance?
Right.
For the panel, anyone can.
Well, we were talking about yesterday. So when I started back in the olden times, the trade magazines used to list upcoming productions and the office addresses and so forth, and you'd shoot off a bunch of resumes and hope to get an entry-level position, either in accounting or in the production office. And if you're new to the business, you should start at that entry-level position and kind of seek that out. And it's a good way to get an opportunity to observe and see what's going on a production, see where your strengths lie, what your interests are. I think, Bryan, yesterday we talked about, what is it called? Production
Weekly is how I recall.
Something like that. There's different publications now that are now
Services,
online. That you can find out what productions are coming up. And, it's a good thing to start out as a PA or, an accounting clerk in production and film and television, and get your foot in the door and start getting experience and meeting people and determining, where your interests and strengths are, and go from there.
And I agree with Yolanda. Once you put your foot in the door and you start on let's say in an accounting world, you come in. I always tell the newcomers that this business can take you anywhere you want, but it all depends on you. You need to learn as much as you can. I always tell people, don't be shy about asking any question. Don't be shy about learning what others are doing. Don't be shy about, asking to help people for other stuff that what you're doing. If you're done, doesn't mean you can, just leave. You may want to help somebody else, and build that network, because that's what's, at the end of the day, what's going to get you to the next level. Having
Absolutely.
people believe in your talent, your commitment, and your dedication. And obviously hard work will pay off for you, and relationship will also take you a long way. So if you do all these as a newcomer, you will get where you want to be. And once you get into any department on a film, you can absorb and see what others are doing, and then pick where you want to go from that point, and position yourself to work in that field, and the sky's the limit. You could do it.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, all of us, when we have our next things coming up, are looking for, I mean, all of this is a challenge. It's a challenge to, take on all of these projects. So when we have people that we've seen demonstrate ability and hard work,
Exactly.
then we're looking for them when the next thing
Absolutely.
comes up, because we need that army with us. You're only
Right.
as good as the people that you have with you. So
That's right. Yes,
yeah.
it's a team effort, and when you need someone, you need them right away, and you
Yep.
can only think of the top people that help you, and you can count on and deliver, because it's all about 100% commitment to the industry, because that's how you're going to succeed and go to the next level.
Yeah,
And Bryan, I know you've had a very interesting career. I mean, could you share a little bit about? I know you started in the camera, but then you kind of dotted around a little bit. But could you share that?
I've been fortunate enough to work in camera department, the accounting department, the transportation department, producers guild, various and sundry positions. I was just thinking what everyone was discussing here, and Chip mentioned earlier that the talent acquisition is such a difficult thing, and to the point of, from my perspective, production finance in particular is how the studio interacts with a film. So what they see immediately is hot costs to cost reports on a weekly basis. That the financials are what feeds in and tell the story to the financier of what's happening on a particular production. So on one hand, while getting the talent, be that an actor, a head of department, equipment, location, whatever, that's the most important thing. The second most important thing is to pay those people in those things. And then the third most important thing is to then reflect that in a report fashion on a regular basis to say, ooh, this is where we're at and this is where we're going. And so again, you can't find enough great accountants at the moment, or even warm bodies sometimes, depending on where you're shooting. So I think as the restrictions for shooting lessen and we start to go back into some form of production, getting a job in production accounting is a great place to start. As Nour was saying, you get to see every department literally, like
and
how do they
now
work?
demand is high. I mean, there's more material out there. There's more streaming services, features, all that. So there's high demand for accountants. So we really, the newcomer need to really get themselves in position to take over the department at some point, and work hard and create that network. But definitely there's a demand out there, and I don't think there's enough accountants out there to fulfill that demand.
Yeah, now is definitely the best time that I can remember to get into the business. And if you don't live in a production city, opportunities through courses like that the EP provides are a great way to get started. If you can make it to a production center, I'd encourage you to do so. It's hard to get hired ahead of time on these types of jobs unless you have a lot of experience. You really have to be in either Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, Vancouver, Toronto, or another one of the production hubs. But another piece of advice that I would give is take every opportunity that comes. You have no idea how that opportunity is going to feed into future opportunity down the road.
I agree. Yes.
And just work as hard as you can, and people will recognize that.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, on the panel, did anyone have a mentor? And then if they would share, if they did have a mentor, any piece of advice that's kind of like words to live by that may have really changed or shaped their lives of their careers?
I had one in particular. I didn't have specific ones, but there was one person in particular when I transitioned out of working strictly in accounting and audit. When I first came out of college, I worked at the Walt Disney Studios, and I had a great mentor there who was in production finance and television. His name was Walter O'Neill. Maybe people might know him. And he was really great. And one of the things I got from him was, to kind of going to Chip's point, is to take opportunities that present themselves are important. And also to be, to the extent that you can be, based on your life circumstance and, where you are, is to kind of be bold and take chances. Bryan kind of talked about this when we chatted yesterday. It's a good idea to really take some chances, and they're not really chances. They're actually investments in yourself. And, quickly you can leapfrog yourself a little bit faster into your career by exposing yourself to different parts of the business, or things that you might not have been thinking about, or creating a relationship with someone in the business who might have an opportunity down the road that they might think of you for that. So, I mean, that's the main thing that I got from him, and also just in my own career and looking back on it, of things that I might have done differently.
Yeah. Nour, did you by chance have a mentor? Just curious.
I mean,
Or a
I
friend
did.
or what? Yeah.
I did have actually someone I looked up to when I first started in the industry way back when the day. And this guy I worked for, he took me under his wing, and he taught me steps. Back then, believe it or not, there was a lot of manual stuff, wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
computerized. And but I had come from a MIS, management information system background, and I know how to program. So I used a lot of the tools that I learned from school, and I brought it into the industry, and I
So
started.
now we know the secret. Look at that. You have to get an MIS degree. I like that.
Yeah, so it kind of helped me, and what I'm trying to say is, whatever you learn out there, you can bring into, I never thought I would be doing what I did for the last, over 20 years now. But definitely, education and that helped me, and I use these tools to advance in my job and then get where I am now.
That's great. Just curious, just for the panel, 10 years from now, looking out, what technology changed with all this new advent of technologies that we're coming up with? How do you think people are going to be able to consume this information and content that's being produced? And what will it look like in the environment? What would it look like for me to be watching Netflix? What would it be for me to be watching a feature? What's my environment, and what do you guys think what it'll look like in the future as far as the way in which people will be consuming the content?
I think it's going to be, pretty plentiful, different ways. I mean, hopefully we'll still be going to the big multiplex theaters and, watching on a big screen in the dark with a huge audience, but we'll also be able to watch literally anywhere that we are. It's interesting too, because I see so many kids and know of many kids who love consuming content on mobile devices.
Right. My son.
iPads and phones, and it's their preference. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, kids sit in front of a large screen television and actually watch something instead on their iPad. Like,
yeah, a little 4-inch screen. Right. Right. It's true.
The availability of, consuming that content anywhere you are, I think is a big attraction as well. And I think that's only going to grow. I think we see companies, with their corporate strategies and their content strategies aimed toward it. If you see something like Quibi, their whole strategy is, consuming that way. So I think it'll be all over the place.
Bryan, what do you think?
It's funny. I was thinking 10 years ago when I was, Overture was winding up and the independent film business started to decline. The idea of a streaming service still seemed a little far-fetched to me because I couldn't, really stream past 480 or, at best, and just 1040, and it was all blocky, and you're like, I don't know, even YouTube, I'm not sure I'm going to get it. Clearly was wrong. And I think that lends itself to the idea that whatever people want or have a desire to see, the market's going to create for them. So whether that's VR and AR, or just as you said, the convenience of being able to see things wherever and whenever you want to see it, that will continue to get more niche. But I do think the older styles of bigger screens and better sound systems will still play a part, just as they, do in music, the live shows, big venues. I still think there's a human need to go out.
Right.
So I think it will be a combination of everything. I think we'll just have more and more content and more places to see things, whether it's YouTube, Quibi, Netflix originals, or feature films in the theater. I think it's all going to be there, and probably something new as well.
Yeah. I know that Netflix, and Chip, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you guys had purchased a theater chain for the display of your projects that you want to have for Oscar contention. Is that what do you see in 10 years for your studio?
I think 10 years from now, it's going to continue to improve on where we are right now. And it's a great time for consumer choice to choose what type of content they want to watch on which service. For me, I still love going to the theater. I hope the theater business is still strong 10 years from now.
Right.
But I think it's going to come down to individual approach for each individual, and it's just going to continue to get better.
I think what we're finding out, and, it kind of, really started with Netflix, on our TV screens. I think we're finding out that audiences enjoy an experience, and kind of a cultivated experience. And what I think we all found out that it was extremely attractive to be able to consume good content when and where we wanted to consume it, as opposed to being locked into any timetables. And I think that's just grown and expanded out. And I think just an audience experience is going to be the future of where we go in film and television. And I think, we're learning quickly and being a little bit adept at, those distribution models that allow for that. And even in the theater experience, going to the theater now is a different experience than it used to be, 10, 15 years ago.
That's good. Just out of curiosity, looking back on your careers, I know each of you have had a different way of getting to where you're at today. But looking back, is there anything you would change? I don't know, Nour, anything you would change, or Chip, anything? Or were you happy with the way it all worked out?
I wouldn't change anything. Again, like I said a little bit before, I never really went to school thinking I would do, film accounting and be in this business. But the way it fell through in my, the way I fell into it and continued, and I strived in it and became my life and career, I wouldn't change anything. I absolutely enjoyed every moment of it, and I still continue to enjoy it. So it's been just an amazing ride for me, and I'm totally blessed.
Just like
Yeah,
Chip, anything you would change?
Sure. No, I wouldn't change anything per se. It's, most folks that are in the finance part of the business didn't know that it existed in college.
Right.
And so I moved out from the East Coast, jumped in the business. I was actually working for someone that now works for Yolanda. And I just stumbled across the finance part of the business, and I said, "Oh, sure." And it's one of those things, like I mentioned earlier, you just have to say yes to opportunity, work as hard as you can, and you really never know where that's going to take you. I think one piece of advice I would have is don't try to rush through the different steps of each career path. In production accounting, there's multiple steps as you're going up from clerk up into production controller, and each one of those steps is highly valuable. With each step, you continue to go up. And if you jump over those steps too quickly, then you're missing out on learning opportunities that that will lessen your impact in your future roles?
That's a great point, Chip. I agree. I always tell guys as well that if you want to be sitting as the head of the department, you really need to do all the tasks in that department so you understand what everyone else is doing. So having come from that background and done every job in my department now, obviously I don't do all the detail work, and it's a teamwork. A lot of my guys do a lot of it, and I'm just overseeing it. But definitely I understand what everyone's going through and what they're doing, and I can really judge how the performance is. But having knowledge in the entire department and aspects of every task of it and every position in it, it's really helpful into getting to the top level and be, your own head.
Steve, I just want to add too, it's very important that everything that we've said as far as gaining the experience and working hard and all of those things. But I'd be remiss not to mention that something that is extremely important in this business in particular is to form relationships. I've actually spoken on a couple of other panels or some interview that I did, and someone asked me, what advice would I have given my earlier self? And I said, you need to understand that this business is not necessarily a meritocracy either. It's not, you're not necessarily, if you are the very best at what you do and, and work very hard, that isn't going to be the only piece of the puzzle to get you to where you need to go. So it's very important to form those relationships with people.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, that's great. I appreciate everyone on the panel today. Just, James, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, we've got
panel?
a lot of really great questions coming in. One quick announcement that I want to make to the audience. Zoom has got tens of millions of users simultaneously using it right now. And some of you guys are having a little bit of an issue with picture lagging or maybe hearing a little bit. It's a Zoom issue. We can't really control that. However, I can reassure you that Zoom is correctly recording all the video and audio. So if you want to revisit this webinar after it's posted to the production community, it might be a little bit smoother experience than seeing it live. You'll be able to see and hear any content that you might have missed up to this point. So with that, let's go into some questions. There are some really exciting ones that have come in for some individuals and for the overall panel. Let's start with one that is for Nour. Nour, how do you budget for a film like Avatar with so many effect shots and developing technology and with a schedule that's constantly changing?
Good question. It is, the first thing you need to do is actually understand what is the schedule entails, what is the, how is the film's going to be shot and how are you preparing for it. So for Avatar, it was a big challenge for me to even budget that film because I'm used to a live action film where you have normal construction crew, normal, set dressing stuff. And on Avatar, when we did the first Avatar, I was, faced with the idea that we have computer programmers building sets. So it's pretty much, I felt like we have, a visual effects company, not your normal carpenters and builders. So I took my time to understand the process. I took my time to understand what entails, and I kind of started designing, forming a sort of tracking mechanism. What is the best way to budget the schedule based on how the filmmakers wants to do it? And you break it into pieces, and then you put all the pieces together to come with a big number.
Thank you so much. So we've got a couple of different flavors of the same question that are coming in. For instance, Yolanda, what do you think is the most important thing to consider when hiring a production accountant? There's a question for Chip. What kind of candidates are you looking for in the JET program? So let's throw this question to each of you because each of you have a different perspective on this with your different roles. Let's start with you, Yolanda, and then go to you, Chip, and then let's hear what Nour and Bryan are looking for when hiring accounting staff.
Sure. Well, first of all, a good amount of experience. You know, you want to start there at that level, but you also want to have someone who is going to be, for lack of a better word, a team player, and someone who is a good communicator, because the best amount of information that you can gather from all of, from all of the various departments, from all of the creatives, you have to form a partnership with all of them. Information is very valuable, and it's how you're going to continue to track where you are once you have created that budget and you've all decided this is the plan that we're going into. Being able to track it and stay within those budget parameters and make decisions and be able to process that information and have cost reports to know where you are, so that you can continue to make creative decisions, as you move along through your schedule, are extremely important. So an individual who understands how to form those kinds of partnerships and communication lines with, all of your departments and all of the creative team is the utmost importance.
Yeah, communication is definitely important. For me, one thing that I look at that might be a little different than most is the individual's curiosity. How curious are they about our line of the business, and where do they see that change could take place? And if they can see that, then they can help be a part of the process of innovating and making things better. So curiosity is something that's very important to me when I'm looking at candidates.
And before we jump to Nour and Bryan, there's also a follow-up question for you, Chip, that's specifically about the JET program. One of our audience members has gone to the website, and it says the JET program looks as if it's closed. Is that true? And when will it reopen?
Sure. So we hire for the JET program usually twice a year. Right now we're hiring, I believe, for our teams in APAC. So for our Japan, Korea, and Singapore team. So I'd say just check back on that website in a month or two. And typically we have done a class that started in January and a class that started in July. But we will address the cadence of that based on our need in the studio for more of our junior executives. So it's subject to change, but I'd say just check back in a couple months and there'll be more available.
Thanks, Chip. So Nour, let's go to you, and then Bryan. What are you guys looking for when you're looking to hire production staff?
I actually, obviously experience is, number one, but, not everyone comes with the experience. So I look for motivation, commitment, and curiosity. I mean, when I, interview someone and I see the hunger, so to speak, in their eyes, and they want to, the eagerness to learn and to want to be commitment, that, definitely they go on the top of my list. If they have a prior experience, then obviously a reputation, and you check on their references, but always I look for the motivation factor of that person and what they want to accomplish, and what does it mean for them to get into this department, and what they want to learn out of that experience, and how they want to come out. So definitely motivation.
How about you, Bryan?
It's interesting. Quite often the studio or the financier will want to put on their own accountant in addition, separate from the production people. But that aside, if I do have input, as has been stated before, the most important thing is someone who can do good work. Good work is kind of a combination of speed and accuracy to me. So can they do solid work that's in a relatively good time frame, or reasonable? Is it relatively accurate? Because some information changes, but can they extrapolate properly? The budgeting is one thing, estimating is another. They're kind of different skill sets. So they're related, of course. Hot costs also important, right? Because again, it's the storytelling back to the studio of how we're doing on a shoot.
I have to add one more thing. Sorry. Also, I look for how they get on with other people, because it's not only doing the job; it's being able to cope with the pressure and cope with your coworkers. So if they are able to handle pressure and be courteous to each other, and personality plays a big factor in what we do, because the job itself is a high pressure job, and it's high volume. So you're gonna be able to handle all that and keep calmness and and be effective.
I was going to say a good reputation. A lot of us know it's a small town. It's a small, big town.
Absolutely.
So you end up calling around and
Yes.
asking what the prior experience was. So,
Right.
Doing a good job in your previous projects is important, because there will be phone calls.
Yeah, well, it's a relationship between good work and attitude, and ability to make to change, do its best. Maybe they talk well to the producer, but in the studio, but they may treat the crew horribly, which is a problem. I mean, there's all those different personality types that are out there, and we've probably worked with all of them or resemble them.
Right.
It's a tricky game, but can you get better at what you're doing is probably one of the most important attributes in my mind. It's the same thing we do every day, but can you make it better? Can you get better information? Can you work with people? Can you make it easier to understand for studio and crew alike? It's all important.
All right, I really love this next question, because there's probably no more 4 people that are qualified to answer it than you 4 on the panel. What are the characteristics that a production finance exec is looking for? I'm sorry, that is not the question I meant to ask. I am going to get to that question. This is Zoom is playing around with me a little bit. For experienced domestic accountants, how do you make the transition or get the opportunity to work internationally? Nour, Bryan, you guys have worked internationally. Chip, you are overseeing an international crew. Yolanda, you have international experience as well. You've produced international productions. How do you guys suggest that an experienced domestic accountant make that leap to an international production?
I can start off with something here. Definitely, I've had the experience to work with, internationally, and I, had a chance to bring U.S. accountant internationally. The first thing I tell an experienced domestic accountant, when you go internationally, you really have to understand the nature, the rules of that country and what it entails. And you can't bring the US rules to a foreign country, because every country has their own rules. Now, the accounting rules tells the same, but then you have to adhere to what that country, asks for. As far as, a lot of time when I go to a foreign country, I hire a local accountant or a payroll person, which is a big, people who have relationship with the local crew. Definitely that helped the department, helped me in getting the job done in a country where, especially if they're not English speaking country. So you need somebody who speaks the language, who can communicate. I've had crews where they didn't speak English, but the accountant spoke English, but then her rest of her team did not speak the English language, so they were communicating with their own crew. So I would definitely recommend that you go to a foreign country. You can do it if you're an experienced domestic accountant. You can do it anywhere else, but you still have to go and try to learn about the country and how the culture works, and don't think it's exactly how it is in the US.
And those opportunities too tend to be, there's kind of 2 types that I would think about. One, are very large, big budgeted feature projects where a US-based accountant or assistant accountant would have that opportunity to travel. Typically, it's because it's a very large budgeted show and you're going to need that, volume of personnel on the show. The other type I can think of could potentially be very small projects, but in countries that are not really, don't see a lot of production or big production centers, where the financiers want to send in, US based production personnel to make sure that the accounting is properly taken care of and tracked properly. So those are the two opportunities. And if you have contacts or people or experience on with people who do those types of films or have those types of opportunities, that's going to be your best bet to get international experience.
Yeah, I would generally agree with what Yolanda just said. For us, we're shooting all over the world. And if you've done a project for us in the States and done a great job, then you're more likely to get an opportunity to do one of those locations around the world. If it's in a location that doesn't frequently see films, then you're not as likely to find local accountants that can do the studio job. And so we're more likely to bring somebody in. I'd say that the two traits that we'd like to see from someone before sending them internationally are: one, are you adaptable? If you're set in stone in almost everything you do, then you're less likely to be acceptable in a new place and a new environment. So show us that you can be adaptable. Also, show us that you can be a good listener. When you're working in a new culture, in different languages, in places that's really foreign to you, if you can't listen really, really well, then it's hard to do the job effectively in those locations. So yeah. I tend to find that the accountants and the controllers that do really well on huge projects overseas or small projects overseas is they have the ability to blend in with that local crew and be one with them versus be someone that comes from a different place and just shouts and yells orders.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a good question. I would also add, we didn't really define how one becomes a production accountant, particularly in this conversation. We kind of jumped right from, just because of the person's question, we went right to, being a financial controller in a distant country. Can certainly be done, but one thing, maybe like if you're an estimator in construction or a big department, special effects or something, you're going from estimating to maybe a first assistant accountant or payroll. Knowing payroll, knowing AP, both sides of those are really important. Estimating is really important. And so one interim step I find is what they call location accountant. So like if you're on a show that has either a small place or a small shoot rather in one location, Morocco, let's make it up, you send that person to Morocco to help be part of the team that comes in, the film comes in, shoots Morocco, then they go somewhere else. So you get some experience that way. Both internationally without having the pressure of doing the entire show.
That's true.
Yeah,
so that's one good way to do it.
Yes.
It also depends a lot on the production service companies in those foreign countries. So you rely a lot on them for the as Nour said, for the local ways of the unions and or just the working crew itself. How they pay in whatever currency. If it's cash, are you just paying the production service company, or are you actually paying individuals? Like there's lots of ins and outs. But lots of opportunity in foreign countries, be the Canada or Romania.
Right.
So in a similar vein, what characteristics are you as production finance execs looking for when bumping someone from production accountant to production controller? How does someone make that move? Chip, why don't we start with you?
I think the big one for me is judgment. Are they able to make good calls in challenging situations? And if they've demonstrated that on the first assistant level, then we're more likely to give them the opportunity. We are most certainly looking to give folks that opportunity because, as we've said a couple of times in this webinar, it's very challenging to crew up all of our projects across all of our companies with great people in that seat. So it's important for all of us to be looking to that next generation and trying to pump them up to that next level.
Yolanda?
I'm going to punt that to Nour.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Wise.
Definitely, to take someone from production accountant to controller, obviously the experience will play a big role because then the next step becomes more of a management skill. You are managing the department. You're not really doing the nitty-gritty stuff in it, but you, at the same time, you're responsible for everything in that department happen. So an experienced production accountant who's done it all and be able to run the cost report and tell you the whole story about where you are at any given time and how you track and how you manage people. So there's multiple skills there to be able to go the next level. And once you master that at the production accounting level, you can certainly do the financial control job.
Bryan, any thoughts? You made that leap yourself as well.
I never did, actually. I skipped it. I do think it can be, as Nour said, it can also just be someone who's been in the industry a long time and has worked their way up, and they kind of use it as a title and a way to get more money. That's part of the business as well. Typically, though, I would say it's overseeing a large project that has multi-city, multi-country, multi-company currency. I think
Yes,
is what it was
usually the controller job comes with the larger project. I mean,
Exactly.
on a small film, you don't need a controller, but definitely.
But I've seen it.
I know. I mean, but a lot of studios probably wouldn't allow you to do that. But maybe they do now. I don't. I mean, but working on a large project, you really. I mean, that job is crucial. A lot of people think it's just an accountant job, but it's not. It's really, you need an accountant. You need more than one accountant sometimes. To manage a large feature that has multiple countries, multiple currencies, massive amount of crew, massive amount of transactions. So it's really, that job becomes crucial for the filmmakers and for the studio to be able to report properly. You can't do that job yourself as an accountant without having the time just to analyze what's going on every day.
Particularly on projects like that. When we did Point Break, we shot in 10 countries.
Right.
And it was essential. I mean, you need local you can't have a local accountant then be in charge of all of those different locations. So you need that, all of them then to, report into somebody who's overseeing the massive picture of it.
And at the same time, the controller then at that level, they will be in daily contact with the producers and production managers to understand what's going on with the schedule, with the company, any changes that reflect, then they can make the adjustments. So they don't have all the time to concentrate, sit in the office, just, do the signing and do the, the daily, paperwork. They need to understand the overall picture so they can report properly. It's all about understanding the big picture, really. That's what it entails.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to say here that we haven't really mentioned upon is that there's nothing wrong with staying at a specific level if that's the job you enjoy doing and you're good at it.
I agree 100%. Yes.
We've all worked with fabulous second assistants, first assistants, payroll accountants that just have no interest in taking that next step up. And that's perfectly fine. We need great people at every level.
That is very true. I agree with you, Chip.
So
some people don't like management. It is true.
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of time left, but there are a couple of COVID-related questions that have come in that are a little bit different than we've been hearing in other places. I'd like to throw them out. I'll just throw several of them out, and you guys can speak to them as you think is appropriate. Which entities do you expect will release guidelines for production going forward? Should we anticipate studios releasing guidelines individually, or do you think there's going to be a cross-studio cooperation to establish a single set of guidelines? And also, is there any talk of productions making crew sign waivers as a condition of employment for COVID liability? I know that's a lot to answer at this moment, but Yolanda, you want to take a quick crack at it and we'll move on to the others?
Yeah. I mean, as we kind of touched on earlier, every entity is looking at this. Every studio is looking at it. Production company, all of the guilds and unions are taking a look at it and trying to figure out what's the path forward and how we can get back to business and do what we all love safely. I believe that there will probably be, guidelines that are specific to those organizations. I don't anticipate there being one singular set of guidelines that everybody is following to the letter, but I anticipate that there'll be individual and specific to the organizations, but I anticipate them having a lot of commonalities across them. And, there'll be conversations and cooperations depending upon, what guidelines come out of governmental entities and so forth, and needing to adhere to that, and any guidelines that we get from, you know, our labor unions as well.
Chip, what do you think? What's going on at Netflix?
I'm not involved in all those conversations. I think what Yolanda just highlighted seems right.
And Nour, you you know, are currently, you know, still working on Lord of the Rings, and Bryan, you've got another project coming up. How are you guys approaching that? How do you expect to get direction from studios or other organizations?
Well, I mean, for us, the main thing is obviously we have to adhere. We're in New Zealand, so we have to adhere to the New Zealand government, the guidelines, and that's what we're trying to do. Once we understand exactly what they ask from us, then obviously we will have to move forward binding to those rules. So the government guidelines will be very important to adhere to. You have to basically and move forward.
And Bryan?
It's a great point, Nour. I mean, as he brought up, it's a global industry, so there's going to be different governments involved. Even within our United States, every state is going to have different approaches, be it Georgia versus California versus Illinois, New York, et cetera. I think we're going to, the short answer is that we'll probably have to, no, we will definitely have to adhere to statutory laws, right? And probably city ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
Will something then roll up as far as like Hollywood and CSATF, or contract services as it's known by? Will they roll out a program that's online similar to sexual harassment and how to drive a 10,000-pound forklift? Like there are agencies and within our own industry that kind of help for safety.
Right.
I assume at some point that will be included, but I haven't heard yet, mostly probably because we haven't heard from the government, I don't believe. Soon as we get our limits, though, the wonderful thing about this industry is it's one of the most creative things in the world, and we'll figure it out. If you tell us
and
what
most adaptable.
Exactly.
100%, right? Like, well, you can't have more than 5 people in this room at any one time. Great, let's shoot. Like we won't mess about. We will definitely figure it out, but you need that information in order to move forward. What is your social distancing? What is your PPE? What is,
I mean, that's the entire job, is like, you know, each project is different. And so is, you know, the job is to figure out how we're going to approach the specificity of this particular project. And they're all different. So this is another challenge.
Well said. Like if you were working on a show on the water, you would have various needs to deal with boats and water safety and certain protocols for water safety officers and extra boats.
Handguns.
So it's
weapons,
there's that, you know, high seas piracy, like for Steve.
Yeah.
But I think that would then extrapolate towards whether you're on a stage or you're outside, and how big is your crowd, and how big is the crew, how many actors do you have, what's their distance, all those things will come into play, and we'll figure it out, but you just kind of need those certain guidelines in order to put us forward.
That's right.
At least that's my impression, you know, perspective rather.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so last question. We only have about 30 seconds for each of you to answer this, but we have a question that came in from India. When someone has experience in India or in a foreign market and they're looking to work on a big budget or a high CG production, how do they go about approaching that if they're looking at it for the first time? I know it's a big question, but we've only got about 30 seconds each. Nour, you want to lead us off?
I can tell you, I mean, if someone has high experience in India and the project happened to be in India, that would be great for the controller to find that person. If they're somewhere else in a different country, a lot of time we look for local hires with experience, but then we go the next tier, go for the outside world. But there's, you know, obviously knowing what the project is and contacting the production or the finance, you know, the production controller, and let them know your experience, and there might be a chance. You never know. You just got to put it out there and let people know who you are, what you've done, and once you send that, hopefully they, you know, if there's room for that person, then they'll bring them.
All right. You know what? Unfortunately, we're out of time. That is going to be the last word, but there are a lot of other really interesting questions that we got. We are going to do our best to answer those. We'll post them on theproductioncommunity.com, and we'll do our best to answer some of those questions that we did not get to. I want to thank the panel so much. Steve, any final thoughts
Yeah.
before
No,
we?
I think it's just a great panel, and I appreciate everyone's time and effort. This is really good. I appreciate it very much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
having us.
So
Thanks.
don't sign off just yet, everybody. We want to talk about a couple of other things. First of all, we want to mention in just a minute, when you click out of this webinar, you're going to get a survey. Please, like I said earlier, take 30 seconds, answer that survey, let us know how we did today. Also, we have additional webinars coming up in just a few minutes at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about sync on set crew tools continuity. Please join us in looking at that. And there's 2 other webinars coming up this week. Tomorrow, 9:30 Pacific time, we're going to spotlight on Canada. We're going to be looking at production during and post COVID-19. And then last this week, Thursday at 11 Pacific, we are going to be looking at managing project and division assets on using Sync on Set's Asset Hub. You can register for those at theproductioncommunity.com. Speaking of theproductioncommunity.com, this is what it looks like. If you aren't already a member, please head on over there and check it out. Not only can you watch any of our past Master Series webinars, but you can revisit today's webinar. You can also visit our forums. You can ask industry experts product questions, listen to podcasts with EP experts. It has our entire support library. There's tons of stuff, and it's searchable. If you want to know more about Smart Start, search Smart Start. If you need details and analysis about COVID-19 legislation, search it. If you're looking for a job, post your resume. We've been talking about jobs here. There's a section for you to post your resume. Folks that are hiring in production accounting and at the studio level frequently are asking EP for recommendations. Please throw your resume into the mix there. You can join the thousands of people who are already a part of the productioncommunity.com. And another website I want to mention is a new one, my.ep.com. It is a new tool where you can access your last 3 years of EP pay information. It is absolutely free. Just log in, register. You can compare week over week changes in your pay. And if you're filing an unemployment insurance claim, information you need for that claim is only a few clicks away at my.ep.com. It is also your destination to purchase the new Movie Magic Budgeting, which is available now. You can download it, and the only place you can get it is my.ep.com. Also, we're excited to announce that we've launched an e-learning center. Sorry, guys, folks, the slides are a little out of order here. We're excited to announce that we've launched an e-learning center. Our first 2 classes are available now. We've been talking about skilling up here. Production Accounting 101 and Smart Accounting 101 are available right now. If you're a freelancer, those 2 classes are free until July 1st. So please register and take advantage of that promotion. You'll notice a theme. We're talking about my.ep.com, and please note that that is a site that you're going to want to bookmark as one of your primary EP resources. One other thing I want to talk about here is the Smart Hub Vault. For your working from home efficiency, EP and our partner GRM can help you today with digital mailroom and digital conversion services. So we want to let you know that the EP and GRM scanning service is available even though we're under stay-at-home orders. We also have a new solution that enables you to have secure, compliant, remote access to business-critical documents and data, as well as workflow and collaboration tools for remote work environments, which is why we're offering a free 60-day pilot for up to 10 users for the Smart Hub Vault. Take advantage of that. Please contact us at masters@ep.com if you want to know more. Free for 60 days for up to 10 users. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate the insight that our panelists have provided. And if you want to revisit any part of this conversation, it will be posted later today at the Production Community. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.